if you want to hear about anime video games and video games based on anime, stay here because that's what we're talking about today.
Yay!
So in honor of E3, which is,
looming
kind of
before us.
Yeah. Hit
Like
on
a
that just a
gigantic
little
monolith.
bit already. Yeah. We want to talk about video games from anime. I mean, let's be honest. There hasn't been very many good ones that come to the States or really anywhere else outside of Japan, which is a little annoying. But, happens.
But they do come.
They do, yeah. So we just
something
had...
to say about that.
Are there standouts? I mean, are there good ones that you think of just love?
So I really like the Love Live game on iPhone.
Okay.
This is kind of like a music rhythm kind of, hit the circles as they come in, kind of tapping rhythm game, but it's fun. But other than that, it's just kind of hard to pick out like the really good ones. Obviously, I think the Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm series is a lot of fun. It's like beautiful. The combat is actually pretty fun. Of course, you can argue whether or not everything is balanced, but within fighting games, competitive games, there's always balance issues.
Yeah.
There's also a fair amount of really good Dragon Ball games. I think if you kind of look at a lot of the Bandai Namco games that have come out for anime, I mean, it's mostly like shonen stuff, but it's still a lot of fun. Like they have a lot of really good fighters and things.
And of course, Pokemon.
And of course, I mean, Pokemon...
It's kind of in a league of its own, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, it was a game first.
Right.
That turned into...
An anime.
Anime and everything. So, but yeah, there's a ton of stuff. I know, Jared, you wanted to enlighten us on some sweet
Yes.
histories.
Historical stuff.
Time to be old. No,
You
but
brought props.
No, I did bring props. I've got a couple of props here.
Show and tell.
I've got my little. This is my little Hello Kitty LED handheld game. It's so adorable. Hello Kitty, not first associated with anime, more of a character in the traditional Japanese sense.
Can you describe that for people who are listening?
Yeah, for folks who are listening, this is a tiny little handheld using an LED monochromatic screen where they kind of pressed in little things that when you agitate it with electricity, the little picture appears, and you steer around with a little flower-shaped D-pad and use the little apple she's holding as a button, and just try to accomplish silly little things. It's one of those little portable games. You can look these up on the internet. I'll pass it around if anybody wants to.
I do.
see
It is
but-
show and tell.
Yeah, it is show and tell, but it's kind of
fantastic.
adorable. And they, these were. It's a lot like if you've ever seen a Game & Watch. That's similar to that, or if you had a Tamagotchi as a kid, it's kind of like that. The other one I have here is Top Secret Episode Golgo 13. Now, I actually owned this as a kid, which I probably shouldn't have. This is one of the first anime games to come to the United States. It was for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's based on Golgo 13, the manga and anime series. You guys familiar with Golgo 13?
No, explain what that is.
Golgo 13 is this dude that shoots people a lot. He's a he's kind of like really grumpy Japanese James Bond. And he wanders around the world with his awesome sniper rifle and shoots people. And in between shooting people, he has sex with the ladies. And then he goes and shoots people some more. And that's really kind of his M.O. And
Very James Bond.
Yeah, kind of like James Bond, except, without like the happy charm and more the like, I'm just going to kill you. He's just, the guy never smiles. Smokes a lot of cigarettes, sits in a lot of sun-drenched rooms feeling sad, and then goes out and kills some more people. And
So
that's
he's emo James Bond.
Yeah, he's emo James Bond. That's a really great description.
Emo James Bond.
So Golgo 13 Top Secret Episode is... this came out for the NES, and this is a really odd game in a number of ways. NES, as you know, was heavily censored in the United States.
Yes.
But some of the censorship didn't exactly make it into Golgo 13. This is a game where, for example, when you want to refill your life, you go to the hotel, and there are these little anime-style cutscenes scattered around the game. Duke Togo is his name, and Duke will look at the camera, and then he'll turn around and face away from you, and you're looking over his shoulder, and he'll talk. Somebody will walk in, and there's a cutscene, and it's just text. But it's lightly animated, and they really made an effort to make it look like anime or a manga conversation. And Duke will talk to somebody. Well, when you need to refill your life, you go to the hotel, and you meet a woman who, I kid you not, her name is Cherry Grace. And you meet Cherry, and then you and her have a romantic conversation in your hotel room, and then it cuts out of the room, you see through the window, and you see the two characters embrace, and the lights go out, and your life meter fills up.
So this predates God of War by a number of years.
Oh, by a number of years. You have sex to regain life in Golgo 13 in a Nintendo game. Yeah. It's Duke smokes, and this... It's a terribly flawed game, but it tried a lot of interesting things. They had side-scrolling levels, and then they had side-scrolling shooter levels, and they had first-person mazes, and they had first-person shooting levels, and then they had these sniper mode levels, and they tried to do all these different things. What's that?
I said, holy moly.
Yeah, they crammed, and none of it worked, but it's all glorious.
You know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
Nier. which is also a hot mess of a game that works really well. I know it's like a random thing to just shut out, but that's because it's this mix. I mean, you were saying like it's a side scroller, but it's like a first person maze kind of thing.
Yeah, and none of it works, but they tried really hard. Nier's a great comparison, actually. It's really fun. It's the only video game where the jump and shoot buttons are reversed that I'm not angry at, because it just sort of fits how janky the rest of it is.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to recommend it if you weren't there, but it does a lot of neat stuff. It tries these anime type scenes. Every time you use a continue, it's an episode. And when the episodes run out, the series is over, whether you finish the game or not. So you have a limited number of continues. I'm talking way too much about Go-Go. It does have maybe the most glorious ending of any video game ever. At the end of Go-Go 13, you're in a room where they are cloning multiple Hitlers. And you're being attacked by laser beams. And Hitlers are leaping out of the cloning tanks and attacking you. So you're fighting lasers and tons of, like, an army of Hitlers. And when you finally defeat all the Hitlers and damage the machine, Hitler's brain, the real Hitler's brain, is way off, and you zoom in on the sniper mode and shoot Hitler's brain with a single bullet. And
this predates, was it Wolfenstein that did it?
Oh,
or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
This predates all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Bionic, you were forever killing Hitler on Nintendo. You kill him in Bionic Commando, too.
That's right,
It's
I forgot
called
that.
Master D.
I just feel like the scenario you've described is just missing sharks.
Yeah, actually, there are sharks in Go-Go 13. Yeah, they're really irritating.
This game does not disappoint.
You scuba dive and you're attacked by sharks.
It saw the future, and it knew what all our pop culture references were going to be.
Sharks with freaking laser beams.
And just crammed it all into this to just warn us of what was coming.
That's amazing. Okay, what is Cassandra G? Some sort of weapon?
Oh yeah, Cassandra G is a weapon. It's a virus, and the whole plot's kind of driven by that thing. So there's Go-Go 13. That's kind of kind of out of order. I hope.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a fun game, and I had this as a kid, and I'm like, when I play it, I'd be kind of like, am I supposed to be playing this? Because I knew what was going on. I was like, just looking to see if my parents were behind me. I mean, it's not graphic or anything. The Japanese version, the female's actually naked in the game, although she's all pixely, so it's hard to tell. But that's Go-Go. We never see naked because anime. No glistening men.
No glistening men in that one.
Not in that one.
Right. No food porn.
No food porn either. But so have you guys ever played any of the early anime games that did come out? Have you ever gone back and played any of the early anime-inspired games, say on the Famicom or the SG-1000?
No, the earliest system I had was Sega Genesis.
Okay, all right. So by that point, it was just starting to leak into the States. You had things in that 16-bit era that made their way over and started to be identifiable as anime. But in Japan, where anime was big business and manga was big business at the time, of course, it was very natural to adapt. We had Sesame Street games in America, or we had Mickey Mouse games. So did they, for that matter.
Oh, don't get me started on Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, so they took their popular properties and turned them into mostly kids games. You had an Astro Boy game for the NES. You had Doraemon. You had Phoenix. You had for the SG-1000. You had Delinquent Girl Cops. You had
Can't say I played that one.
Delinquent
Girl Cops.
The SG-1000 never came here. None of these games that I'm describing ever came over here. But then you did have a couple that kind of slipped through. Dragon Power, for example, which is based on Dragon Ball. But all Dragon Ball references are stripped out of it.
Wait, is that a licensing issue?
It was a nobody cared about Dragon Ball over here issue.
Really?
Yeah, at that point, because this is the late 1980s. And
so this is pre-DBZ.
Yeah, because DBZ was over there, a bigger deal for a while before it made its way over here, and it's the same kind of thing. This is early Dragon Ball stuff based on mostly on the manga. So Dragon Power comes over here, and it's completely unrecognizable as a Dragon Ball game.
Right, if you look at the box art, you have Dragon with these blue orbs around him, and you just have this dude who looks like in maybe a karate outfit or something. I forget what they're called, and he's just kicking. It's all right.
Yeah, you got a guy in a gi just kicking. Right.
Yeah,
but in reality, you're running around as Goku, killing things.
Americanized kung fu stereotype. That's what this is described, or the character is described as on the box art. So
on the box art.
I can agree.
Yeah. So and there was that, maybe some of that was the whole Japanese cultural menace thing we talked about before. But I think really, in this case, it was more just nobody cared over here because nobody knew about it. That hadn't permeated our culture yet. So it's just simpler to stick a kung fu guy.
Right. And that's actually the second Dragon Ball game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm actually looking it up right now.
Oh, no kidding. Did the other one come out here too? I didn't know.
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, Dragon Power is one of the few that made it over. Go-Go 13 and its sequel, The Moffat Conspiracy, they also made it over. And there were a few others that trickled through. This one was odd in that it actually didn't make any effort at all to hide its connection to the anime.
Right.
You also had things, you had games that Have you ever seen any of the old games that try to use anime styling to make the game feel like an interactive manga or interactive anime?
No.
No? So Ninja Gaiden. Have you ever played the original Ninja Gaiden?
God, yes, years ago.
Okay, so you remember that opening cutscene?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ninja Gaiden is like really cinematic, and the cutscenes are all very anime style in terms of the palette, and they use the limited NES hardware, so you've got like these two ninjas in a field that like fades in. And there's that boom, 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 boom. You remember the scene, right?
Yeah.
And then it like zooms in on their faces, and you see the motion behind them, and it's an anime.
I never thought of it that way. That's amazing.
That's what they were going for. And they leap up in the air. And then there's cutscenes all through the game, which, by the way, were a pretty new idea then. But they're all very anime inspired. Ninja Gaiden was not an anime at that point. One came later. But it still tried to emulate the form. Moon Crystal is another great one that didn't come over here, unfortunately. And if you can get your hands on Moon Crystal, play it. It is beautiful. It's one of the most gorgeous 8-bit video games I've ever seen. And it's, again, great anime cutscenes.
Yeah, I think the closest that I've gotten is like old Taito games or like puzzle games where they have sort of anime.
Oh, totally. That aesthetic,
like
yeah.
Magic Drop and what was another one that I was playing?
Are you talking about Magical
Poochie
Drop?
Carrot.
What's that?
Is it Poochie Carrot?
Poochie Carrot? Yeah,
Poochie Carrot.
which I've never actually played. I've only
It's
watched
actually
people
really,
play.
really fun.
Is it?
Yeah, we used to have an arcade machine that played it at IGN, and then it disappeared, and I've been angry ever since.
The Poochie Carrot machine just disappeared?
It just disappeared along with Cleopatra's Fortune, which was another one that has this cute little animated Cleopatra, and that was a puzzle game as well. And I think that's the closest that I've come that I can remember playing something that had sort of an anime-esque, at least look.
Yeah, aesthetic to it. So people tried to emulate that. The hardware was so limited, but you did what you could. And then coming back the other way, you have some American games come to Japan, and sometimes Japanese would try to make the art style more palatable to a Japanese audience. So you have like Ultima 3, which is this very kind of grindy, ugly RPG. Really good game, but not pretty at all, designed for computers. When Japan ported that to the Famicom, they make the characters look all bright colors and cute, and they have like rounded features, and there's this peppy music playing, and it's subtle, but they were doing, and you can see the anime influence on what they were trying to accomplish there. You run into something similar. When Maniac Mansion was sent to Japan, even though there was a version of Maniac Mansion in America released on NES, Jalico made a special version just for Japan to change the art style to fit, again, more that look that people expected. And everything's much rounder and brighter and cuter. It's a neat little thing there. And then you have, I'm talking a lot.
No, keep going.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Enlighten us.
It's our history lesson.
Okay, just wanna make sure. Old people talk with Jared. And then, so then we had the CDs come out. And when CD-based gaming happened in Japan, much earlier than happened here, by the way. The PC Engine, which we know as the TurboGrafx, came out in the late 80s in Japan, and the CD unit came out very quickly there, much sooner than it did here. Now, CD technology at that point was single speed, and there wasn't a lot of RAM in the thing, and so you could really only do three useful things with it. One, you could make big games that you loaded a little bit at a time, so you didn't have to worry about ROM constraints for your games anymore. So you could make games that were long, like, say, a long RPG. Much more easily, much more cheaply. Second, you could put great sound on it because you just played Red Book audio. You just played it like a CD while you were playing the game, which was a big thing. And third, you had this situation where you could put cutscenes in your games, and they could be real animation because you just play the cutscene as part of an intro, and then you'd play a regular like video game level.
This era.
Yeah, that era, exactly. You remember these? Do you play any of these?
Sega CD is something that I had years and years ago because Lunar Eternal Blue came out on that. Do you remember Lunar Eternal Blue?
Do you remember the Lunar Silver Star Story song at the beginning, the All Through the Night thing?
Vaguely.
Oh, okay. It is just like, it is the most radical butt rock leg warmers thing ever. It's this fantasy intro, and I think I'm going to do it a service. The two consoles that this really affected were the TurboGrafx 16 and the Sega CD, both of which had very small American install bases. But there was this company called Working Designs, this guy named Vic Ireland, who up to that point had been making database software. And Vic figured out that pressing CDs was really cheap, and he loved Japanese culture, loved anime, loved that whole world, and wanted to bring it to more people. And so he started importing and translating Japanese games for those two platforms. And even though the install base was small, his stuff sold almost 1-to-1 with these platforms because the games were different than anything else you could get at your home, and they had this beautiful art and these beautiful animations and the wonderful music and this very kind of distinctive feel to them. And so you had games like Lunar, you mentioned.
How do you know all this? Like, I am listening to you, and it is just like, I mean, it's like Googling it into a computer, and then you come up with this Wikipedia page of information.
I owe smarter people than myself most of this. There's some video game historians that have worked really hard over the last few years to inform the public about this. People like Jeremy Parrish or Frank Cifaldi or Chris Kohler and a lot of other guys have worked very hard to make sure that there's programs like Retronauts, which I highly recommend you go listen to if you're interested in game history.
I've heard that you like internalize all of this in the most wonderful way, and I find it completely fascinating.
I'm like a kid at Christmas. I love the stuff. It's just, and I was there too. That's the other part. You know, that helps. If you were there and kind of dived into it. I mean, I wanted a TurboGrafx so bad. Ryan McCaffrey actually had one, and I hate him for it because they were so expensive. Oh, they were expensive. But yeah, you had games like Lunar, which had that amazing song. It's actually a really good RPG. You had Ys, books 1 and 2.
Oh my gosh!
Some people say Wise. It's Ys.
It's Ys, yeah.
Yeah, and which is a gorgeous game.
Yeah, and actually they released it for the Nintendo DS a few years ago. Actually.
Yeah, that sucker has been on just about everything now. Yeah. That has been re-released like 20 times. That game stands. Mechanically, it's not all that interesting, but it's fun and it's pretty, and the music is bodacious.
Right, and so the thing that stands out for that is like the anime style kind of cutscene.
Yeah, exactly. And people say, "Whoa, yeah, it looks so good."
I feel really dumb because whenever I was a kid, I was watching commercials for Final Fantasy and all those games on the PS2, and I didn't have a PS2 at the time, and I just thought, I was like, dang, those graphics are so good. I didn't realize those were like cutscenes. It was just like the CG for that.
Well, it was a box shot. You saw it in a comic book, or you saw it in a magazine, or you saw it as a still most of the time, or you saw it in motion for a 4-second clip in a commercial, and that was enough to sell the thing.
And you're like, wow. Like,
wait, you saw Final Fantasy commercials as a kid on the PlayStation 2?
I was really young, yeah.
Because I remember the original Final Fantasy. Now I feel like I'm 80 years old. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I remember when I was younger, I was like, oh man, I really want a PS2 because Final Fantasy just looks so good.
Somebody get me a wheelchair. Oh my god.
I've got one at the house. We can wheel it over.
And then it didn't turn out that way. But I mean, it's kind of cool, like how they took more liberal arts with their cutscenes.
Absolutely.
Like that anime style. It's fun. I mean, even if it's not necessarily based off an anime or kind of like trying to mirror that style.
They were trying to mirror the style. They were trying to create something that was like an interactive anime movie. And maybe you looked at Cosmic Fantasy 2 or you looked at Pop Full Mail and you're like, these could be characters. And a lot of these did spin out to, I mean, there's been a Ys movie and there's been I think there was a Pop Full Mail movie.
Was there a Lunar anime or movie ever? I feel like it's the kind of thing that would be because it has that anime style.
I don't know if Lunar has had one or not. I'd be surprised if it didn't, honestly, because a lot of these, wasn't there a Magic Knight Ray Earth 1, 2, and
there was a video game for Magic Knight.
But I think that and I can't remember which order that went in. Did Magic Knight turn into a game, or did the game turn into Magic Knight?
I thought Magic Knight Ray Earth was actually a manga.
It was a manga series.
Okay.
It's a clamp.
Yeah, it's a clamp. That's
Thank you. That helps. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's how it started, and then gradually around the time Miranda talked about having her Genesis, the Super Nintendo, around that era, you start to see more recognizable characters appearing in games. By the time PlayStation comes along, it's so darn easy to port the stuff that you really start seeing. And that's around the same time, really the early 90s to mid 90s, that anime starts to get some traction in the States. And some of these things come over in more recognizable form. So that's a long, long thing on how some of this happened and some of the early examples. But again, even in the mid 1980s, they were hard to find, but there were examples of anime in games. And kind of like today, some of them were crappy, but some of them were crappy in interesting ways, and a few of them were really good.
Have you played one recently that you found to be a good anime-based video game?
An old one that I found to be a good anime-based video game, or a new one?
A newer one.
Newer one? Oh, goodness. I don't remember the last anime-based game I really enjoyed.
I think I can actually answer that for you because you reviewed a game.
Did I?
Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn.
Okay, that's fair. Absolutely. You know what? That is actually fair. I gave that a 7, and it was a well-deserved 7. that game was fun. It was grindy and enjoyable, and I got to play with hundreds and hundreds of Gundam.
So by definition, is good.
Yeah, is good. Exactly. Yeah, that was a solid game. I'd recommend that to somebody who especially who enjoy Gundam, because it's kind of a Gundam All Stars experience. That's really, it's very fan servicey. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome.
Wow.
Oh, and side note, Lunar does have an anime and games.
Okay.
Like tons of games, of course, but there is an anime.
Lunar is worth going back to.
Yeah.
I really like
absolutely.
Lunar.
I'm still mad that they don't have a proper port of Lunar Eternal
No, not
Blue.
anime. Excuse me.
They had like an iPhone game.
It has a manga
I was gonna
series,
say,
not...
Yeah.
Didn't ever get anime.
Okay. Yeah, Lunar's worth going back to. The PSP version of Ys is really good. There's a few others. Actually, Falcon's made a lot of good games.
Yeah, they have. They've made a lot of good games. They don't have a huge following, but they have a very niche following.